Hi Taylor, thanks for doing this. So if you want to start introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your research, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Taylor Coyne. I'm a PhD student and a sessional lecturer at the University of New South Wales. I'm in the Environment and Society group, and my research largely focuses on urban stormwater infrastructure, and in particular how various kind of iterations of infrastructure around Sydney in particular materialise throughout the urban space.
Cool, because this is a week on urban geography, so we will be talking about infrastructure and water and other things, other surprises that you have there for us, right?
Lots of surprises.
Cool, so can you tell us where we are at the moment?
Yeah, so right now we are in what is known as Lachlan Swamps in Centennial Park. And I say now known as Lachlan Swamps because, like all spaces in Sydney, this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So just kind of remembering that we are standing on Gadigal land here in Centennial Park is always something I always like to think of whenever I come down here. So yeah, Lachlan Swamps here is often referred to as a remnant swamp or a relic swamp, which is kind of a bit of a misnomer. It's actually not so much a living fossil as it's also been referred to. It's more of actually a constructed version of what would have been here in the past.
Okay, so this is human-made.
Yeah, so everything that we can see around here has been planted by a human, and actually not just a human, a European human. Everything here has been constructed as part of a vision, and that vision is Centennial Park that we see today.
Yeah, but in itself it's a very special place, right? Like we have the water, we have the trees, we have the grass, and the people obviously enjoying this space. So there's a history to it.
Absolutely, it's constructed, but that's not to deter or to lessen its meaning and significance. It still is a beautiful spot. I love coming down here, but remembering that its constructedness is something that I kind of always been attentive to in any kind of urban space, really. But it is definitely a hugely culturally significant spot for a lot of people. It's been in the Sydney kind of cultural heritage, whatever you want to talk about that, for at least over 200 years. That's significant. It's something to pay attention to.
Yeah, and even more before colonization.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so tell us about stormwater infrastructure and the city and where we're standing here right now.
Yeah, so Lachlan Swamps Lachlan Swamps is part of a massive chain of wetland ponds that connect from around this upper part of the Botany Basin, and then stretches all the way down to Botany Bay in the south. So if we're thinking above, we might think about the golf courses and the race course, the parks that connect from up around here. So we're thinking, what's around here? There's Paddington and Woollahra and Waverley over here, and they kind of and Randwick, and they act as a catchment for all of the rainwater in this part of town, which funnels all the way down to Botany Bay. What the park does is actually acts as a massive stormwater retention basin. So as the water comes in from surrounding urban spaces, the ponds that we see around here act as a way to contain the stormwater that comes in, filters it out as a kind of natural biofiltration system, and then eventually it'll get flushed down into the kind of the conventional stormwater drain system that we know. But in doing that, it acts as a multiple different
spaces?
Yeah, multiple spaces, multiple functions, multiple uses. In terms of, it's not just a stormwater drain. You can see that it's not just a stormwater drain, it's actually a thriving ecosystem as well. So it's a kind of a 2-for-1.
I know. And this is what I was going to say, right? This infrastructure we don't usually think about in our everyday lives when we're driving to a certain place or when we are, taking a lecture at UNSW in the Randwick campus. Like, stormwater is not something that we keep in our minds, but it's so essential for the functioning of the city.
Yeah, absolutely. Every day when there's rain and when there's not rain, that's having an impact on the kind of the functioning of stormwater.
So you mentioned that they function as an ecosystem. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So this Lachlan Swamps here should probably be referred to as Lachlan Springs, because the swamps themselves, the spring water that we're seeing here, is very much that. It's coming from the underground. So all of the ponds in Centennial Park are, as I mentioned, stormwater drain fed, apart from this one here. So this pond here, Lily Pond, which kind of comes out at the end of Lachlan Swamps, is a spring-fed pond. So there's 11 ponds, 10 are stormwater, and 1 is a spring-fed. So what happens is you get these ultra clear waters in the spring here because it's been filtered up through the sands, the Botany Sands aquifer that sits underneath us right now, and you get these amazing, beautiful, kind of pristine waters. Pristine-ish, you know, there is still surface pollution which comes in. But what that means is that the ecosystem is able to thrive in this place here because you have things like small little invertebrates, little dragonflies and little kind of larvae that love this type of water. And out of that you get little fish that come around here, and also the eels. So the native longfin eels love this pond. If you come here and you kind of are very quiet, sometimes you'll see them gliding around in the water there. Also, because of the kind of the aquatic life, that means you also get the terrestrial life. So you have this amazing bird life that loves it in the swamps here. But also, in addition to the birds, we also have what you can probably hear going around us right now, which is the grey-headed flying foxes. So they are the largest grey-headed flying fox colony in Sydney, and they love the paperbark forest because it is beautiful habitat for them. It's close-knit kind of paperbark swampland, and what really is great for them here is it's kind of a secluded haven. They haven't really got any predators that they can be here. They can be here for as long as they want, and they kind of know that they're going to be looked after as well. It's kind of a weird conservation way that the park isn't really intending for it to be a conservation space, but it actually has functioned as that in itself. And the flying foxes, they also act as an ecosystem generator by pollinating all of Sydney's, well, most of Sydney's kind of fruiting trees. So the fig trees that we see, you know, around the inner west or whatever, they've probably been pollinated by these folks up here. Which is kind of a nice little link to say that, you know, Centennial Park and Lachlan Swamps right here, we're about 5 Ks away from the centre of the CBD here. It's really not that far away from the city itself, really.
So we are in the middle of the city.
We're really, yeah, very much in the middle of the city. This park was intended to be close to the city the whole time because it was meant to be the lungs of the city. It wanted to, when it was created as a park in 1888, it was kind of designed as a refuge for people to come to hang out, probably not hanging out back then, but I like the idea of these kind of, I don't know, 19th century folk hanging out in the park.
With their umbrellas.
With their umbrellas and their, you know, their carriages. But it did fulfill that function and has fulfilled that function as a place for both humans and non-humans to come, to kind of relax, to rejuvenate, and to connect to quote unquote nature in a sense as well.
So it functions as a space for recreation, obviously. It's a public space so people can come here. And I think during COVID it performed a really important role into people's well-being in general, because this is one of the areas that we could come visit and be COVID safe. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I used to come down here every morning during the lockdown as kind of a way to center myself, come and watch the birds, just chill out. There was also kind of an interesting vibe in the park around the time. You see a lot more people when you're at home, not at university or at work, and you're not seeing people on a day-to-day basis, actually coming here and interacting with people, smiling at them. It just had a really nice atmosphere going on. And it was just also really great was that being in the park here, you notice that all of a sudden you could start to hear things more clearly. So you could start to pay attention to the sounds of the bats. You could hear the bird calling so clearly because people weren't driving to work. There weren't the planes flying overhead. And you do hear the planes in the park here, especially in the afternoon, and it can drown everything out. Yeah. When that's not happening, suddenly the park has a new light to it.
Yeah, and you can listen to it, right?
Yeah, really deeply listen and kind of really connect to this space. And it kind of gave me, as a visitor to this park, it gave me a sense of, I don't want to say ownership, but definitely some kind of connection, a belonging to this space, that I'm here and I'm kind of looking up at these flying foxes and they're looking down at me. That's a kind of a profound connection that we don't experience every day.
Thank you, Taylor. So as urban geographers, we look at these spaces. We should think about the interactions that we have with the more than human world and how fantastic it is to pay attention to the sounds and to the water and to all the elements that surround us. Thank you.